Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Office Bloke Daz.
I'm Office Bloke Mike.
And I'm Office Bloke Max.
We are three of us together.
Yay.
UK have had some heat waves this year.
We have.
This is
we have
one
a
you
bit.
chose, Max, to sort of like touch on.
Yeah.
When will extreme heat become unlivable?
Well, it is getting hot.
Well, it is. Is it?
Well, that is the
Because
big
we've
question.
had, records began many years ago.
Yeah.
But we've had heat for many years. There wasn't
Yeah.
a record.
Yeah, a lot of it
So-
is since records began, which is what I'm guessing like 200 years ago, something like that.
If that. Yeah.
It's roundabout, I think, isn't it? But yeah, that's what I'm guessing anyway.
But we've been here for a lot longer than that.
Yeah,
We have,
no.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I'm
there's
not
been
sure
many.
if it's...
Yeah, I was just going to say, there's been many a year that hasn't been recorded. That's for sure.
yeah.
A lot more that haven't been recorded than have been recorded.
I think it's a very minute percentage
Yeah,
of what's been recorded to what hasn't been recorded. So with the heat and the weather teams usually use a lot of scare tactics now to sort of like frighten you into what's going on.
Yeah.
And it all sort of like centralizes around climate change and stuff like that. Where I'm yet to see anything that's sort of like that's coming in saying that's what it's going to be and that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The professionals talk about it, but I'm not sure if it's a planned coming together.
I know what you mean.
Hypothetical. Yeah.
I think one of the things that they can only go off is evidence that when it's been recorded, and they're saying, well,
and
this is what
prediction.
it looks like,
Yeah.
and predictions.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's definitely up for debate anyway, isn't it? There's
is.
all sorts
It
of
is.
debates that go on about it, and I won't sort of like go on one side or the other. I'm open to listen to all sorts of evidence on both sides of the equation, big time. But
Let's see what this is. When will extreme heat become unlivable?
Most of the deadliest heat waves to date have been dry heat waves. But as our climate warms, a possibly even deadlier heat is on the rise.
It doesn't matter how breezy it is. It doesn't matter how much shade you're under. It doesn't matter how much water you're drinking.
These are extreme humid heat waves, often referred to as wet bulb events. And these are, in my opinion, one of the scariest byproducts of climate change. They've been relatively rare historically, but a new study shows that by 2 degrees Celsius of global warming, many of the most populated places on Earth are likely to experience them. And the only way to protect ourselves from these dangerous wet bulb temperatures is to cool our environment. But what happens if that's not possible?
The time of year that always has the highest stress on the grid is always just the hottest day of the year because so many people are using AC, and so then the AC is liable to go out.
What happens if there's another extreme weather event, if you have a tropical cyclone that comes in, wipes out power?
Stick around as we break down why these temperatures are so deadly and how we can prepare for a world that's so warm our bodies literally can't handle it. Let's start by talking about dry versus humid heat. Dry heat waves are usually driven by large high pressure systems that trap hot air near the surface. These systems push air downward, and as the air compresses, it heats up in a process called adiabatic heating. If the high stays stuck in place, the heat builds day after day with no clouds or wind to carry it away. And that's exactly what happened during the 2003 European heat wave and the 2021 Pacific Northwest heat dome. Now let's take a look at humid heat.
As temperatures rise, we can hold a lot more moisture in the atmosphere. And so this means that if a given location has air temperatures going up with ongoing climate change, it's likely that if they have a moisture source, humidity is also going to increase.
We just saw how dangerous this can be in 2015 when one of the most extreme humid heat events on record struck Karachi, Pakistan. Temperatures up to 45 degrees Celsius combined with oppressive humidity. Power outages and water shortages made conditions even worse. At least 1,200 people died in just 10 days, most from heat stroke and dehydration. Humans primarily cool down by sweating, but when the air is humid, sweat can't evaporate as easily.
Talk about places like Pakistan, right? I know what Pakistan's like, right? It's not as developed as certain other countries. Some of the big cities are. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Been some big cities there. It's very developed. It's very it's very advanced.
Yeah.
However, 45-degree heat I've been in 45-degree heat in many cities around the world, right?
Yeah.
And it's controlled. You're in air conditioning. You're okay using up power and all that. That's probably if living in Pakistan may the infrastructure they've got there may result in why 1,200 people died. Whereas you won't get in Dubai, for example. 45-degree heat is a common occurrence in the summer.
Yeah.
you won't get people who are dying in Dubai, 1,200 people who are dying in the same heat conditions.
Yeah, I'm guessing the infrastructure,
not the same living conditions.
Yeah, the infrastructure is a bit more sort of like advanced. I'm guessing, and yeah. You know, I get that. I mean,
it's cool down sort of like, you know, shopping malls or houses or whatever it may be, whereas they might not have that available in certain places in Pakistan.
Yeah, so it's a funding and sort of infrastructure issue there.
Yeah. Certainly, I'm guessing away from the cities is probably like less places that got access to AC and things like that.
Yeah, when you've seen them dots on the map before, the Middle East was surrounded by the dots,
and Africa as well.
Yeah, and Africa as well. You got like again, when people are dying, like I think it's a lot of it's due to infrastructure that goes in and availability for certain products that you need.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
So we don't cool off as well. This is where wet bulb comes into play. Wet bulb temperature combines heat and humidity into a single number, which helps us understand when conditions become dangerous or even lethal.
You can imagine taking a normal thermometer. If you take that thermometer and you cover the bulb in a little sock that is then placed into a container of water, so it's constantly wetted, evaporation is going to take place off of that little sock, and it's going to have a net cooling effect.
The wet sock at the end of the wet bulb thermometer functions similarly to human skin. Water evaporates off the wet sock, while sweat evaporates off our wet skin. In both cases, evaporation carries away heat into the surrounding environment.
But the more humid the ambient air is, the more difficult and less efficient that evaporation is to take place. And so that makes any cooling through evaporative cooling less efficient at high temperatures and high humidity.
Which is why humid heat feels so muggy and uncomfortable for us, and why it can be so dangerous. There have been a number of attempts to better understand how humid heat affects the human body, in particular, where our physical limits are. But it's not easy to identify dangerous wet bulb thresholds because, well, they're dangerous.
So obviously you can't put someone in a heat chamber and truly cook them. That would be unethical. But what you can do is increase temperature and humidity and measure someone's core temperature and see what's the point at which their core temperature starts to increase. And that's the limit of compensability.
The human body generally does a good job of regulating its core body temperature through sweat. But once we cross the limit of livability or compensability, as scientists call it, our core body temperature starts to increase uncontrollably. And this wet bulb temperature range is actually a lot lower than we previously believed.
So this paper is really trying to summarize the most state-of-the-art estimations of these thresholds. And so what we see is that there is a range. So uncompensable wet bulb temperatures range from about 19 to 32 degrees Celsius.
And you might think the lower end of this range, 19 degrees Celsius, sounds really low, but it's important to understand that a 19-degree wet bulb does not equal 19 degrees on a regular thermometer. So 19 degrees Celsius wet bulb is actually more like 46 degrees Celsius with low humidity or 32 degrees Celsius with higher humidity. And the reason there's a range is because this threshold depends on a number of variables, including activity level, exact air temperature and humidity levels, and age.
Older adults' thermoregulatory responses are worse. They sweat less efficiently. They also have higher risks of comorbidities, so things like cardiovascular and respiratory diseases.
So according to their study, where on Earth are we likely to cross these thresholds? Well, at 2 degrees Celsius of global warming, which could come in as little as 2 decades, for older adults, it's about a third of Earth's land area. But that only tells part of the story.
It's 35% of the land area, but it's also many of our most populous places on Earth. Most of India, most of the populated area of China. This is most of the eastern portion of the U.S.
Let's name two countries that have both got 1 billion people living in there. You know what I mean? He just says China and India straight away.
Yeah. But
no shit, because it's going to be there.
Yeah, it's just a centre, and it's all hot in Africa, and then obviously over in South America as well.
Yeah, when we look at, but even when I read about like studies that they're doing for like environmental change and net zero and all this kind of stuff, and I look what what Britain are putting into it and what we're getting out of it, and it's something like it's not even you're not even scratching the surface. And then when you look at what India are doing and what China are doing, it's whatever we're doing is just being cancelled out straight away within a day.
I'll get that. Yeah, I mean some of the biggest countries and the high polluting ones have got to bring something to the table. Otherwise, it's like say, as what we're doing is probably like a drop in the ocean, isn't it?
It is. It's more than that.
you need like a global effort for there to be a genuine change.
But a lot of it takes
you're not going to get
a lot of it takes money when countries aren't developed as well, because they can't do it because of monetary situations as well.
China and India have got money.
But a lot of their infrastructure still isn't developed as much as like
they've got space programs.
Yeah, no, I get that.
They got military programs. Shave off some of that and put it into something else. Divert the money somewhere. They got international aid as well.
Yeah,
maybe use that.
West.
And if we let global warming get really out of hand, or if climate sensitivity is just on the higher end of our projections, at 4 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, over 60% of Earth's landmass could see these dangerous wet bulb temperatures. Heat is the deadliest weather disaster in the US and many parts of the world, and it's projected to get a lot deadlier. During the 2003 European heat wave, up to 3,400 people died in Paris alone. At 2 degrees Celsius, which is, again, only a couple decades away, scientists found that Paris will see deadly heat waves like this once every few years rather than once a century. And though this heat wave in 2003 was among the deadliest in recent history, it didn't get close to the dangerous wet bulb thresholds we've been discussing in this episode. But the 2015 heat wave in Karachi did. It passed the uncompensable wet bulb threshold for older adults for something like 8 to 10% of the time. But at 2 degrees Celsius of warming, we can see that the uncompensable threshold is crossed for younger adults as well. And at 4 degrees, models show that the same event would cross the uncompensable threshold for older adults for about 90% of the heat wave's duration. And the thing to remember about these critical wet bulb thresholds is that once you cross one, the only way to bring your internal temperature down is by cooling yourself or your environment.
It doesn't matter how breezy it is. It doesn't matter how much shade you're under. It doesn't matter how much water you're drinking. The only way you can protect yourself from these conditions is by cooling your environment. And so that is why air conditioning is really the major adaptation measure and protection measure that we have.
And although AC is one of the most important tools for surviving extreme heat, it's far from perfect. First of all, it's expensive. AC is energy intensive, and as our climate gets warmer, many people won't be able to afford to stay cool. And due to its financial inaccessibility, many people in places most vulnerable to deadly heat don't have access to AC. Second, air conditioning doesn't eliminate heat. It just moves it. Cooling the indoors means transferring the heat outside, which warms the surrounding air. And in cities, this added heat can worsen the urban heat island effect. Now, let's imagine that everyone could afford air conditioning. It still wouldn't automatically solve the problem. Our power grids in the US and globally weren't designed for everyone to crank up their units at once. During heat waves, widespread outages become more likely, leaving the most vulnerable at even greater risk.
If AC units were our only way of protecting people, as soon as the power system fails, whether that's from the grid being overloaded or if we have another weather-driven sort of infrastructure damage, that's going to put people immediately at risk.
And these compounding hazards, like a heat wave after a hurricane, are a growing concern as we head towards unprecedented levels of warming for humans and as weather across the board just gets more extreme. But there's one more catch. The more we rely on AC, the more we could be fueling the base problem of global warming.
If you tried to just build out air conditioning to deal with heat risk, how much would that contribute to carbon emissions across the world, and how much would that positively feed back on global temperature, making the temperature even higher?
Right now, air conditioning accounts for about 3% of global greenhouse gas emissions. And according to the International Energy Agency, the number of AC units worldwide is expected to nearly triple by 2050, leading to a...
That's also development in technology. You know, AC units back in like 1930 would have been the size of this building.
I was saying
massive.
And now you can get portable ones that sort of like fit on the windows and the tiny little things.
Yeah.
You know, very, very small. You can even get ones that you put ice in them.
Yeah.
And it sort of like transfers the cold air that way. You know, it's not air conditioning, but it makes it does cool it down.
Yeah.
You put a bucket of ice underneath and it transfers the temperature from that into a fan and blows cold air.
Yeah.
You know,
it seems to be like a catch-22 to a certain extent, now, doesn't it? You get at least get some AC, but it uses more power, and it makes the air warmer on the outside, and it's sort of like it's what can you actually do?
But again,
stop it? I don't know.
Infrastructure planning. We've got water shortages in England, believe it or not. It pisses down for 11.5 months of the year, and we still have water shortages.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Because they don't build any new reservoirs.
It's the most British thing.
We've increased our population by millions and not built any new reservoirs.
Yeah, true.
So, and everyone's consuming water a lot more because more people are having showers, more people are doing whatever.
It's just more people.
Yeah, big time.
Consumption's gone up because when I was a kid, we didn't have a shower. So from when I was a kid till to this day, we've not built a new reservoir.
Yeah, no, it's
ridiculous.
Absolutely get that.
Sort of thing, but we've increased the population and more people. Like I say, technology's developed to certain things. We're not advancing with infrastructure.
What if you could just start building in these hot countries, build houses with like cellars? Because cellars always seem cool.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever been in a cellar that's hot. If you know what I mean, usually quite cool, aren't they, below ground?
Well, there's advancement now again in building new houses. But how many houses I've seen a house over here, right, which is it's derelict, but you can't knock it down because it's a grade 2 listed house. It just looks like a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's plenty of that going on over here, isn't there? Yeah, so a big time.
Massive rise in energy demand. So what do we do about this paradox? Well, I think it's a powerful argument for transitioning as quickly as possible to clean energy. The only way to meet the growing need for AC without accelerating climate change is to power our grids with renewables. And of course, there's a lot we can and should do beyond just air conditioning. We can rethink the design of our cities by installing white or green roofs and planting trees. We can also build more cooling centers, upgrade our electrical grids to be more resilient, and prioritize protecting the most vulnerable during heat waves. The truth is that we are headed into uncharted territory, but it's also true that we still have time to choose how bad it gets. So, do you live in an area that's already experiencing dangerously hot and humid conditions? What strategies have worked for you to handle the heat? Let us know in the comments, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether painting roofs white is an answer when you look at all the huge cities like Mumbai, Karachi, all the places in China like Beijing and in Brazil, places like that, in Africa. I mean, the things she was saying there to counteract it, that ain't going to work, is it?
No.
Absolutely no chance.
I don't know, because when you go to like Greece and places like all the villas are white.
Oh, yeah, places like that, yeah, big
so it's
time.
reflecting heat. Somehow it's not absorbing the heat, it's reflecting.
I don't think they do it for global warming. That's just been like from centuries old thing, isn't it? Like in Greece. And
probably to deflect heat.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they were doing, but all I'm saying in the cities, that hasn't been done, and I can't see them doing it now, sort of thing.
Well, if you go to like Karachi or Lahore, places like that, you can't paint anything on the roof because there's that many cables running from one building to another.
Well, that's what I'm
saying. Get access to the roof.
I was just looking at some of the footage there and thinking it's sort of unrealistic. And
it's 29 times just on one shop.
Again, I mean, the renewables, that's great if you've got like solar energy or whatever, but you're still using an air conditioning unit and you're still pumping out warmer air to make the atmosphere warmer.
Yeah, and I think
that's not going to change.
The cost what we're pumping into renewable energy at the moment in the UK is just absurd.
Oh,
it's just ridiculous.
Big time.
The volume we're putting into it, we're not getting anywhere. And it seems to be some of these, I don't want to get onto a political sort of like debate on this sort of thing, but it is kind of running that way with this. You look at net worth of some of our politicians who are on 160 grand a year.
Yeah,
we've got a politician over here who's on 160 grand a year. She's a cabinet minister. Her net worth is £4 million. How does that work?
How is she going to protect the?
No, but how does that work? How do you get that from being in your 30s, whatever she's in her 40s?
Yeah.
How do you get that net worth from that wage that she's only just started earning? And she lived in a council house. Something done add up there.
You'll have to tell me who it is later.
I'll tell you what it is. It's to do well.
Although I've got an idea, actually.
Give you all the clues you need. And it's one of them where it's the people who are doing the renewable energy programs it's all funded and it's all done by the government. So we're giving these big money contracts or whatever. Do a deep dive into who's behind these companies.
See who's the director and see who's
what companies just sprouted up to help with that.
Look, we had all that with COVID, didn't we, as well? There was a few things in a few certain pies.
Well, as long as they're all involved in this bullshit, I'm not buying into it.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Once they distance themselves, then I'll be a part of it.
I fully get that. That's why I'm sceptical about some of it sometimes. I think there's something going on, but I'm still sceptical about how it's been pushed sometimes, and the people involved in it, and the companies involved, and the people who are making big money out of it. You know, you've got to be really skeptical to a certain
I'm one of them
extent.
where I don't, when you talk about chemtrails in the sky and things like that, I'm like, I don't know. It's, so many people say there is, so many people say there isn't, and we've not had any proof of anything, sort of thing. But then when you look in the sky and you think, well, what's all that then? How come it's cloudy all the time? You know, it's just even when it was in like, we had a heat wave sort of thing, it was still cloudy.
Yeah.
And you're like, why? You know, I mean, I noticed on ours there, Britain was just green. It wasn't, it had no colours on it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Even when there was a heat wave above Manchester, it was blue. Everywhere was red and ours was blue.
Says it all.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is, but it's
It's an interesting debate,
You've got
though.
to listen to the professionals. Yeah, you've got to listen to the professionals, I guess.
Oh, of course,
and, But again, if they're on that bandwagon of the investment going into renewable energy and all that kind of stuff, then
you always need a counter argument, other people's voicing their concerns as well. Though I think there's always a huge debate in this on this particular subject, big time. Yeah. So I think you've got I'm open minded all the way on it, but
Same.
I like it. Yeah, I like hearing the arguments both sides.
I just sort of like try to put a vision across of like, or a something like vision, an opinion across of like, what about the opposite side?
Yeah,
Like devil's advocate.
Because we're told every single day over here about renewable energy and heat and climate change and all that. It's pushed in your face every single day.
Yeah,
by news sources, by media, by everyone that goes in. I'm like, well, and then when you do a deep dive, like say you look into who owns these renewable energy companies, and you're like, I fucking see why you're pushing it. You're the owner.
Yeah,
but like I say, we're doing it more than most people. I know because we're one of the most developed, one of the richest countries in the world. But everybody's got to be jumping on it. Otherwise,
one of the richest countries in the world is broke. Yeah. Someone said to me the other day, how many countries do you think wake up in the morning and go, I want to buy something from Britain?
True. Yeah, it's a good shout.
Anyway, nobody.
I'm hoping there's a few people say like Sancho and
you haven't got anything good that's British. I went, we've got music. You went, that's not
not even Ireland.
Yeah. That's not a product to buy.
They're not even
I'll get that. Yeah.
It's there's the answer.
Not many. Yeah,
we're a rich country that's poor. Anyway, debate for the pub. That
what depressing video.
Talk about it for hours, couldn't we?
Yeah, I know.
Shit like that. Anyway, without a conclusion.
I know. Yeah, that's it. There's no actual answer. I don't think, is there? Anyway, so
let us know what you think in the comments. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe as well, and we'll see you on the next one.
Cheers.
Cheers.